Hello, hello. Punk Rockin' here again, and today I'm going to show you the multiple or many ways that you can transfer ROMs to your RetroPie. There are actually three different methods, and they are thus. The first one is the method I showed in how to set up your RetroPie and get one ROM going. It's called Samba shares, and in my opinion, it's the easiest method. But what's easy for me may not be easy for you. So that is why I'm showing all you fine people how to do all three methods. Hopefully one of these methods will work for you. The second method is using a USB flash drive to get ROMs onto your RetroPie or to store ROMs. The third and final method is using WinSCP to connect to your RetroPie. WinSCP is used in another video I'm working on called How to Get Music to Play in the Background of Your RetroPie During Game Selection. Long ass title. That should be out soon, and it's my favorite feature that I've added to my RetroPie. I love having music playing. So cool to scroll through your library. Anyway, it's basically just another way that you can connect to your RetroPie using a different program. You really don't need to do this if Samba shares work for you or if you prefer this method. But all three ways will get the job done. So without further ado, let's get to it. Alright, the first method that I'm going to talk about is called Samba shares. You've probably run across this if you used a computer at all. Windows one, I mean. What we need for this is a RetroPie setup updated and connected to the internet. You can use either method, Wi-Fi, or Ethernet. Also need a computer that is connected to the same network as your RetroPie. This just means connect the RetroPie to the same Wi-Fi or Ethernet your RetroPie is using, have it be on the same network. And then you need to know the IP address or the name of your RetroPie. The default name of the RetroPie is RetroPie. So if you haven't changed it, that's probably what it is. If you don't know the IP address or the name of your RetroPie, don't worry. I am going to show you how to find it right now. Let's hop over to the TV quick. Alright, we're at the TV. As you can see, there's no games, but we want to go ahead and go into the RetroPie. And then we just want to go all the way down to where it says show IP. It's all the way, hit A on this, and that'll bring you to another screen here. And as you can see at the top there, it gives me my IP address. So go ahead and write that down. To get out of here, just go ahead and hit OK. And now we're going to go back, and if you have a keyboard, you can just go ahead and hit the F4 key. And the F4 key, that's going to bring you to this menu. And at the very top, if you look, you should be able to see your IP address. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on it quick here for you, just so you can see it. And there it is, the IP address, 10.0.0.14. And since we are here, the next thing I'm going to show you is how to find out what the name of your RetroPie is. Like I said earlier, if you haven't changed the name is going to be by default RetroPie. But if you want to double check what it is, or maybe you're not sure, maybe this is an image from somebody else, I'm going to go ahead and show you how, and we are in the right area anyway. At this command prompt, we're going to want to go ahead and type in sudo, sudo, space, raspi, R-A-S-P-I, dash config. So sudo space raspi dash config. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on it here real quick for you, and there it is. Once you have this in, go ahead and hit the enter key, and that's going to bring us to this other menu here. Now in this menu, we're going to want to go down to the second option, and we are going to want to hit enter on that. Another box is going to pop up. We're just going to go ahead and hit enter on that. And then the next box, it'll say at the top there what your name of your RetroPie is. It should be RetroPie or whatever the name is. If you want to change it, you can go ahead and change it here. If not, go ahead and go down to OK or hit escape, and we will go back a page. Once you're at this page, go ahead and go all the way down to finish. Go ahead and hit the enter key. It's going to ask you if you want to reboot, and then go ahead and reboot. All right, now that with all that information, with the name and the IP address locked and loaded, let's go ahead and head back over to the computer here, and I'll show you how to do the rest. All right, and another quick way you can check to see what your IP address is and if it's on the same network. If you're on a Windows computer, is just go ahead and hit the start button and type in CMD, hit enter, and a little black box will pop up, and we're going to want to type in PING space RetroPie, lowercase, doesn't matter, hit enter, and as you can see, it comes with a reply from 10.0.0.14 that matches up with what was on the TV there. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and close out of this, and let's get ROMs on this thing through Samba Share. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my ROMs. Here are the games I have. And then I'm going to hit the start button. And I'm going to type in, you could do it in this box also, but I'm going to go ahead and type in RUN. And this little box is going to come up. And as you can see, I already have RetroPie in there. So you could either do //RetroPie or whatever the name of your RetroPie is and hit OK, and this should pop up. Or you can go ahead and do // IP address. So I'm going to type in 10.0.0.14, hit enter. That'll pop up the same way. And then all we want to do is simply hit the ROMs folder here. These are NES games, so I'm going to go ahead and go down to the NES folder. I'm going to drag these over there. Copy, they're on the RetroPie. I'm going to close out of both of these. And then I'll meet you over at the TV. We'll reboot, and I'll show you that the ROMs are on there. Alright, so we just want to go ahead and hit start here, and we want to hit quit, restart system, really restart, and we're going to reboot it. And after we boot it, all the games should be there. It's probably self-explanatory, but I just thought I should throw this in here. It's the only time I'll actually go through the whole reboot to show you all the games, but should be coming up here in a second, and our games should be on here from the Samba shares method. The next method I'm going to show you is the other program that we use on the computer called WinSCP, WinSCP. So I will go ahead and hop back over to the computer, and with the empty RetroPie, we'll go ahead and put games on there. Okay, so now I will show you how to use the program called WinSCP. WinSCP is just a program you can use to connect to your RetroPie in a different way other than Samba. Another term for it is called SSH, or Secure Shell. WinSCP connects to your RetroPie using credentials or a username and password. I don't know if you noticed when using Samba Share, you only had access to a few files. Well, with WinSCP, you can actually access all the files if you choose to do so. This comes in handy when you want to mess with cover art or adding music to your RetroPie, among other things. For this video, I'll just show you how to access the ROM folder, though. To use this program, and for what I'm about to show you, you'll need a Windows computer to run it, the program, and you'll need a keyboard connected to your RetroPie. We have to run a command and change a setting to allow this to work on the actual Pi. If we don't do this step, you won't be able to connect to your Pi. The login will fail. In a lot of documents I read on how to use this method, they don't mention this for some reason, and it'll stop you dead in your tracks. All we need to do is enable SSH, so I will meet you over at the TV to do this. It's the first step we'll do, and then we'll hop back over here to do the rest. So we are going to do the same exact thing we did earlier. At the main menu here at RetroPie, go ahead and hit, with your keyboard plugged in, hit the F4 key on your keyboard, and that's going to bring us over to this command prompt, and we are going to want to type in sudo space raspi config again. Once you do that, go ahead and hit enter, and that's going to take you into this menu here. Once you're in this menu, we are going to want to go down to interfacing options, and we're going to want to hit enter on our keyboard to get to the next area. So go ahead and hit enter. And then we just want to go down to SSH, hit enter on that. That's going to ask us if we want to enable that Mo. And we want to hit, yeah, man. Enable that shit. And then we're going to hit, yep. Now we're going to go ahead and go down to finish and hit enter. It's going to ask us if we want to reboot, and that is all we need to do. So go ahead and hit that. It's going to reboot, and I will meet you back over on the computer to finish up the rest. All right, so we are back at the computer here. Really quick, and just a reminder, if you were ever at the command prompt on your RetroPie and you want to reboot, or maybe for some reason it didn't ask you to reboot when you finished that last step we just did there, type in sudo space reboot, sudo space reboot, and hit the enter key, and that will reboot your Pi for you. You always want to reboot your Pi instead of killing the power when you change a setting or make an adjustment like that. You can go ahead and kill the power, but the change might not go through. But now let's go ahead and get to add in ROMs through WinSCP. First thing is, if you have not downloaded WinSCP, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, open it up. When it opens up, it should look like this here. For the host name, we want to type in the name of our RetroPie or the IP address of our RetroPie. If you don't know how to do that, we did that earlier in the video. Otherwise, go ahead and just type that in. For username, it's just PI, all lowercase. And for the password, the same thing, all lowercase, but the password is going to be raspberry. Next, after we have all that information in, we want to hit login, and that should connect to our RetroPie. When you use WinSCP for the first time, you will see this message here. Don't worry about it. Go ahead and hit update. This message shouldn't pop up again, but if it does, just hit update in the future. You might also see a different message pop up. Just hit continue or update to get by it. No big deal there. At the next screen, we should see two folders, RetroPie and RetroPie Setup. We want to go into RetroPie, and now we see the same two folders we did in Samba shares. The folder we're going to want to go into is ROMS, and in there, go ahead and grab the emulator that you have games for. Again, I have NES games, so I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop them in there. And that's really it. Once you have the ROMs in there, depending on how many you have, go ahead and close out of both of these things. Go back to your RetroPie, restart it, and your ROMs should be on there. Alright, so that was WinSCP. Like I said earlier, you can use this to access more files than you can in Samba shares. And where that comes in handy is when you want to have music playing while you scroll through your games, your own custom music. You'll need to use this program to access the file you create to store your music in. It can also be used for many other things also, but we'll talk about that another time and when you're older, kids. Too young for that shit. No, I'm just kidding. But on to the next thing. The next thing I'm going to show you is how you can get ROMs from a USB flash drive over to your RetroPie. So let's take a journey down memory lane. Alright, now I'm going to show you how to transfer ROMs to your RetroPie using a USB flash drive. We will need a USB flash drive. How large or small is up to you. RetroPie updated and on, and a computer, either Windows or Mac, to get the USB flash drive set up right quick. By setup, I mean making a folder and copying ROMs on there. I'm only going to go through Windows. Sorry, Mac dudes. But without further ado, let's get going here. Okay, so I'm at the computer here, and currently I have two USB flash drives plugged in. I'm going to use both of them. One of them is using a file system called FAT32, and the other one is using a file system called exFAT. Both of these file systems work with your RetroPie. Your USB flash drive will either use one of three, or FAT32, exFAT, or NTFS. RetroPie will not work with a NTFS USB drive, but don't worry, we can change that, and without having to buy a new USB flash drive. I'm going to show you how to do that here quick on a Windows computer. First, I'm going to show you how to tell which file systems your USB flash drive is using on a Windows computer. Alright, so when you hit plug in your drive, you may see this, you may not. No worry if you just hit continue without scanning, X out of that. To get to your drives, just go ahead and hit the start button and go to computer. If you're on Windows 10, it might be a little different, but here are my two drives. And to check which file system they are, you just want to right click on it and go to properties. I'll check both of these. This one is using FAT32. This one is using exFAT. If one of yours is says NTFS, don't worry about it. Make sure you get everything off of the drive that you want. Mine's completely empty because doing this will erase it. We can simply format it to the other file system. Just right click here, go to format. It's going to ask you which one you want to do. You're going to want to hit exFAT. I'm just going to go ahead and quick format, hit start. It's going to warn you about erasing all the data, so make sure you get all that out of there. Hit OK. Format complete. That's how quick it is. Now if you right click and go to properties, even though this is already exFAT, if you right click and go to properties, it should say exFAT now instead of NTFS. So as simple as that. And you can always change it back to NTFS after you get your ROMs on your RetroPie. So now, just to show you that both file systems work, I'm going to use both of these here, exFAT and FAT32. What we want to do is just make a folder on your USB flash drive called RetroPie, all lowercase. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on that one. And I'll go ahead and do it on that one. Right click, file, new, make a folder, RetroPie, and that should be that. And now, before we copy over the ROMs, we actually have to go back over to the actual RetroPie and plug in these USB flash drives. The RetroPie is going to go ahead and automatically add all the files we need to add the ROMs to. So I will meet you over on the TV. Alright, we're heading over to the TV here. And heading down to my RetroPie. And we're going to want to plug in the USB flash drives into the RetroPie. Oh, yep, my cat. Always got to be in the way. Always wants to play. What's up, kitty? What are you doing? Yeah, we want to plug it in. And my flash drives do not have a light on them, but they claim to keep them in until the light stops blinking. I kept mine in for about 3 to 5 minutes. I say that should be long enough. If you have a light, just go ahead and plug them in there until it stops flashing. Basically, this is going to automatically put the folders that we need on here, and then we can go ahead and, when we get back to the computer, put our ROMs in the appropriate folders here. So I will go ahead and meet you back over the computer so we can put the ROMs on there. Alright, we're back over at the computer here. Go ahead and plug in the USB flash drives for you to show you the files we created. So I'll plug in the exFAT one here. And as you can see, it's added the right files. And then I'm going to go ahead and plug in the FAT32 one here. If I can get the damn thing in there, yeah. Here we go. Here we go. Continue. All right. I'm opening it up. And again, here are the files. And we're going to want to go into ROMs. And this is what we're looking for. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this one. But now that we have this, we want to copy over all our ROMs. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to the NES, as that's what I'm doing. And I'm going to copy my ROMs over there. So just go ahead and fill up your USB to the brim, overflowing with games. And once you're all done copying all the ROMs into the appropriate folders, just go ahead and pull your USB out, and I'll meet you right back over at the TV. Alright, and I'm back over at the TV again, and all we need to do now is simply plug in our USB flash drive into the RetroPie again, and let it sit. Depending on how many ROMs you have, it could take a while. Again, you're supposed to wait until the USB flash drive stops flashing. Mine doesn't have a light, and I haven't seen a flash drive with a light in a very long time. If yours doesn't have a light, I think the best way to go about it would maybe be in stages per system, or just plug it in, go to bed, wake up, reboot, and it should put them all on there, even if you have thousands of games. But once you think your ROMs are copied, just go ahead and reboot the RetroPie, and when it comes back up, they should be there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to hit the start button, go down to restart, really restart, and I'm going to let this reboot. And rebooting doesn't take too long. It might take a little longer depending on how many games you have. But as you can see here, we are back up, and I have my 5 Nintendo games that I launched, and I'm gonna that I copied over, not launched. And I'm gonna go ahead and launch this one here. But yeah, that's about it for the USB flash method. I have one more thing I'd like to say real quick about the USB flash drive and your RetroPie. You can also manually copy over files using a USB flash drive by using the file manager in the RetroPie. Just go into that RetroPie menu and go down, you'll see file manager. The only thing, it's a beast, so I won't be including it on how to do that in this video, but I hope to have one up here one day. But yeah, that's about it for getting games over copied over through USB flash drive. Alright, so those are the 3 methods of getting ROMs to your RetroPie so you can enjoy many long hours of reliving your childhood. Hopefully one of those methods works for you and makes it easy on you. Samba shares is still, in my opinion, is probably one of the easiest and fastest methods, especially if you're connected to the RetroPie through an Ethernet cable. But hey, what do I know? Nah, just kidding, just kidding. I just like it because I feel like I have more control, and it works with my setup nicely, so it's not that big of a pain in the ass. WinSCP, in my opinion, is probably one of my least favorite methods because you have to run a command on the RetroPie with the keyboard before you can even connect to it. But WinSCP can be useful. Again, check out my video on how to get music to play in the background of the RetroPie while you're choosing games. Video out soon, I promise. I'm working on it now. You will need WinSCP for that, so if you want to do that, then this will probably work out for you just fine. And then the USB flash drive method isn't bad, except for the fact that you have no idea how long it will take to transfer games unless you have a USB flash drive with a light. But it's probably the easiest no-brainer method. Like I said, just leave that thing in there overnight or do it step by step. Before I get out of your face, yeah, I'll leave. Don't worry. I just want to mention 2 additional methods you can use. You're not copying or transferring ROMs onto the microSD card using these methods, though. You're storing or running the ROMs off a USB flash drive or a network share. So you would still have the RetroPie software on the microSD card. You would still need one of those, but you would have all your games stored on a USB flash drive or the network share. You would have to have the USB flash drive plugged in to play those ROMs, though, which isn't a big deal. Just don't forget the USB drive. Otherwise, you'll have a paperweight to show your friends with nothing on it but a nice pretty screen. But with the other way, the network share, same thing, but your games would be stored on, your computer, an external hard drive connected to your network, or something like that. So the only downside there is you can only play them while you're on that network, so you can't take the RetroPie anywhere, basically. The main reason you would potentially want to use either of these is because of cost. Those micro SD cards can be expensive. Buying a 200 gig USB flash drive can be cheaper than a micro SD card. And if you run it off a network share, such as your computer, you probably have a lot of space on your hard drive. So in theory, you could just buy an 8 GB micro SD card, which are dirt cheap, like 15 bucks, and then use the space for games somewhere else. Do whatever works best for you, though. It's basically wherever you have the most space or how many games, whatever. But that's it. I promise I'll never talk to you again. I swear to God. No, I'm just kidding. But thanks for watching the video, and I hope you're enjoying your RetroPie. Peace out, dudes and dudettes. I'll see you next time.